What type of information does your car collect about you? And who is that information shared with? And perhaps most importantly, what can you do about it? On August 30, 2024, I was a part of a panel of experts who discussed these questions at the Electronic Frontiers Forum in Atlanta, Georgia. This video is a shortened version of an hour-long panel discussion that I have linked to at the end of this video. Welcome everyone to the session on opting out, or the challenges of opting out of automotive telematics. I am John Padfield. I am a former Indiana State Representative. I'm a business professor, but most relevant to this panel, for 9 years I designed electronic modules for General Motors. None of my modules spied on people. I also have a YouTube channel called Business Reform, where I discuss issues at the intersection of business, technology, and society. And privacy fits right in the middle of that, between business and technology. A lot of the videos that I've made recently have been very privacy oriented, especially the last couple. I've been talking about the lawsuit that the state of Texas, Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas, has filed a major suit against General Motors for spying on drivers without their knowledge. And we'll be talking about that today. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and ask our other panelists to introduce themselves. So I'll start with Matthew.
Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Matthew Gariglia. I'm a senior policy analyst at the Electronic Frontier Foundation out of San Francisco. I specialize in particularly government surveillance, and relevant to this panel, where commercial surveillance and government surveillance overlap. So the availability of commercial data to the government, and I'll hand it off to Bill.
Hi there, I'm Bill Buddington. I'm a senior staff technologist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And a lot of the spying that happens when we're in our cars, I feel it is out of our control. If we're talking about, say, automated license plate readers when we're going down the street. But fortunately, we have an opportunity when our own devices spy on us. Fortunately, we have the opportunity to kind of take back control of those devices. And I'm kind of here to inform that technological perspective on that and how that might happen.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amy Stepanovich. I am the Vice President for U.S. Policy at a think tank called the Future of Privacy Forum, where we look at a wide variety of industries and their practices around data and how to make progress on privacy protections. Most notably, we have an entire work stream on mobility and location information, which would include vehicles, but also scooters, semi-trucks, all kind of the whole range of mobility related technologies. And we will be very shortly putting out an update to an infographic we released several years ago that provides a lot of information on where sensors exist in your car and what information those implicate. So if you really like graphics, I am a sucker for a really good picture telling me what I need to know. Keep your eye on the FPF website, because that resource should be coming out within a month or so.
Very good. I have a few questions I'm going to ask of our panelists to get the conversation rolling, and then in a few minutes we will open up to questions from the audience. My first question for our panelists: last month I was in Florida and I rented a car from Alamo Car Rental, and this is the message that popped up on the display when I got in my rental car. There was no opt-in, there was no may we do this, this was just a notification. Your vehicle transmits recorded vehicle data to Nissan and its business partners for various purposes, including Nissan Connect services, product evaluation, research and development. I know from experience the word including means that this list is not exhaustive. So including just means for instance. So what I would like to know, who exactly are these business partners that Nissan is sharing my data with, and what are these various purposes that they are doing beyond the ones that were mentioned?
One of them, unless you're in the state of California, is insurance companies. So insurance companies will take the telematics data that is from your car and increase or decrease your rates, or give you a break just for participating in data sharing, or driver data sharing, to monitor your driving habits, and you get a certain discount just by participating. So that's kind of an increasing trend, which has been recently outlawed in the state of California, but hopefully more states will follow.
I love this example because I think it highlights some of the challenges, like where the topic of the panel is the struggles of opting out, but I think it highlights some of the challenges of getting consent in a vehicle. Because for most people, like you have a phone, for instance, and it's your phone, or you have a smartwatch and it's yours and you wear it. But for a car, there's the owner of the car. There are the people who drive in the car. There are the other drivers that you often have of a car. If you have, for instance, children who are learning how to drive, you probably share driving of that same car. There are people who rent cars. There are people who borrow cars. There are so many different people implicated. There are people who stand outside cars while cars pass them by on the road. All of these people are implicated in some way by the data collection in and around vehicles. And it's really interesting to think about who the person is you need to get consent from legally, and who the people are you need to be adequately communicating to about privacy practices and implications of data collection more broadly. And how do you communicate to those people? If somebody just randomly gets into a car, is there a way to tell them, here are all of the sensors that exist in this car, if the driver's not going to do it for you? So presumably you interacted with a car rental company, you named the company, who maybe has some obligations here. There are dealerships that sell cars that presumably have some obligations to talk through the cars that they're selling. And so I think the environment that we're talking about in the car space is so unique and interesting and complex that it deserves to be talked about and thought through on that level of nuance to figure out where responsibilities lie.
And I think there's one thing to be said too, that as cars get smarter, the amount of data and what they collect expands greatly. So, we might have been talking about maybe just GPS, how you're driving. I know my car records like every time you brake too hard, which you can see why an insurance company might be interested in that. But now, I mean, they're rolling Wi-Fi networks. They're emitting Bluetooth signals. They're connecting to your phone, and so they have the data your phone puts onto your car. And also, increasingly, these cars have cameras, especially if you have a car with self-driving mode. Those cameras are sometimes go all the way around the car and are recording, and they're not necessarily stored locally on your car. They're stored in a server somewhere where other people could have access to it, and where it could be useful to a company, where it could be valuable, because to summon a boogeyman to the room, there is also an entire data broker industry, which makes a tremendous amount of money just collecting, buying data from anything that collects geolocation data and selling it to advertisers, to marketers, you name it. And so cars are kind of a new frontier in that same problem.
I think this is one of the biggest changes since I was designing electronic modules years ago. At that time, it was in its infancy. The engine control module would record about 30 seconds worth of data, and it was a rolling 30 seconds. If there was an airbag deployment, that 30 seconds was frozen, and then somebody could go in, plug into the engine control module, and find out in the 30 seconds before the accident, was somebody accelerating? Was the turn signal on? Did they slam their brakes? But it was local on the vehicle unless it was extracted with a plug-in. Whereas today, as you mentioned, it's just being broadcast, basically live streaming your trip everywhere that you go. Do you foresee a gray market emerging with people offering services to disable some of this technology? If people are struggling to opt out, is it a viable option to find someone that could actually disable some of this data being transmitted?
Well, I think that one of the problems is that a lot of these data privacy violations are inextricably tied to the safety features of the cars. And there's no way to reliably separate those systems. And for someone to go around and tinker with the infotainment system has collateral damages when applied to, the fact that your tires also communicate their level of inflation to the same system. And if you go around and reflash a infotainment system, then it's going to possibly mess with some of those essential safety features. And I think that there has to be a point in the design process of cars where there's a clear line of separation, where you use this system that should be, and the car manufacturer should give the buyers and renters, hopefully, of the cars rights to reflash those systems or change them in a way that won't violate that might stop the data privacy violation, but won't mess with those essential safety features.
So I'm just wondering if there is any sort of policy overlap with right to repair at the moment. Do you see any promise within that world, since that seems to be coming up more with automotive privacy and who you're contracting with when you step into a car and what you can do with it after you buy it?
This is my business professor answer. Go back 20 or 30 years ago, and people bought two things: products and services, and they were very distinct. And today, almost any product you buy, there is an associated service. You buy your phone, but you have your apps as a service. Now you buy your car, and there are services associated with that. That blending of products and services is creating a big issue on redefining what ownership means.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to this channel and click here if you want to watch the entire hour-long panel discussion.